Look, there's no getting around it. These are big instruments. They can definitely hit your CPU and your RAM pretty heavy if you're not paying attention and if you're using them in an inefficient manner. So there's a couple of ways that you can manage your resources. Now, I'm not talking about the CPU here as much as I am the RAM. You can see how much RAM you've loaded up for the current Kontakt patch right here, and you'll see it up at the top at this current instance of Kontakt. So if I loaded up another brass ensemble within this patch, this one's loading up 412 megabytes. This one's taking up 0.63 gigabytes. The entire patch, this multi of two things, is taking up 1.03 gigabytes. So watch when I get rid of the brass. Now my RAM hit is far less. But it can go a little deeper than that. Loading up unused articulations and unused sections can take a pretty big toll on what you're doing. So if you go to the ensemble, for example, and you know that in this ensemble you're not really going to be using the contrabassoon, if you're on a mobile computer and you're worried about your RAM and you've got other stuff loading up, you can actually unload that bassoon and take a look. The RAM requirements go down. We're now at 318. So as you unload those ensembles, it gets smaller and smaller. So if you're not using all of that section, you might want to consider unloading it and not using it. Now, that's not all. Every articulation is a whole different set of samples. So don't load up articulations that you don't plan on using. I know you might want to have the flutter tongue articulation loaded up, but if you're doing a whole piece without using that, there's no reason to have it loaded up, and you could save yourself a lot of RAM by unloading it. So if you know you're going to use just sustain, straight up sustain for this one track, what you might want to do is open up the articulation menu, go to this three dots here, and empty all the slots. And now look, my RAM requirements are 0. Nothing's loaded up. So if I just load up the sustain patches, we're talking 56 megabytes. That's not that much at all. And if you're the type of composer who's going to make a separate track for every articulation, because there are people that do that and that's in their workflow and that's totally cool, you want to make sure that you're only loading up the articulation that you need for that track. So if you're only using one articulation, just load up one. If you're only using two, just load up two. You'll save a lot of memory that way. Your system will go faster. You'll be able to add more tracks in, and everything will be a lot more stable. So make sure that you're paying careful attention to the articulations you're loading up as well as the ensemble elements that you're loading up, and you will have a handle on your RAM.